Samantha, welcome to Halloween Daily. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I could not be more excited to be talking about Terrifier 3, which is absolutely like the horror event of the year. And we are here, and now it's Halloween week as we're recording this on top of that. And then in addition to everything, I always like to say that here at Halloween Daily, we pride ourselves in welcoming the icons of horror. We've talked to Michael Myers and Ghostface and Eddie Munster and even Art the Clown himself. But I think if she wasn't already after Terrifier 3, Victoria Hayes is the newest member of that club. If she wasn't already part of that
Oh, I
club,
hope so. I hope so.
she absolutely. So this is absolutely a pleasure to be hanging out and talking to you today about all things Terrifier.
Oh, pleasure to talk to you. I'm excited. I love talking about Terrifier. So,
Now, before we get into the films, with it being Halloween, and of course, every day is Halloween for us, we always like to get a little bit of your origin story as told through the orange tinted lens of Halloween. And so, can you tell us, first of all, do you celebrate Halloween? And if so, what is your earliest Halloween memory?
oh my goodness, that's a really great question. I love Halloween. I loved it's something I have a lot of friends who aren't from the United States, so they don't really celebrate it as much or as big as in the United States. And I'm always shocked because I love all the blow ups that are out on people's lawns. My mom used to make these scarecrow people, and each of us had a person, and she was the witch that flew into the door. So it was very much like celebrated going around trick or treating, getting candy. Um, oh man, I have a memory, and I don't even remember exactly what I was. I have two older brothers, so our costumes always got recycled down. My mom hand stitched a lot of our costumes. She'd stay up till like 4 a.m. every morning, just like getting ready and last minute stitching costumes together. But I probably was wearing some hand me down. But it really was just like a time where you saw the leaves falling down. I remember just being on my little cul-de-sac in Connecticut where I grew up and just knocking on the doors and putting candy. I don't have any specific memory that goes way back besides that. Just that feeling.
Hmm.
That cool, crisp, like fall air on the East Coast. So that's it's one of my it's my favorite time of year, and it is one of my favorite holidays.
And so you grew up on the East Coast, and it sounds like you've always celebrated, and it's been a big part of your life even from growing up. And how about now today? Do you still look forward to it, get into it, get dressed up, and go out?
I look forward to it. I always plan on getting dressed up and going out, but then somehow work always happens to be on like the 3 days that
Yep.
surround. It's like literally on like October 29th, 30th, 31st and then the 1st of November. So I'm hoping that I get to get dressed up and do something, but it's a busy month for the reasons I'm sure we'll talk about with
Yes.
Terrifier.
Yes.
But
Absolutely. And related to that, every day's Halloween for you sometimes anyway, and the work that you do, obviously, which is true to a lot of the people we talk to here. Um, and then we always like to ask on the Halloween holiday what your favorite Halloween costume is that you've ever worn, and your favorite Halloween candy or treat.
oh my God, that's a oh man. Um, I kind of have grown to love candy corn.
Hmm.
That was some I used to love Reese's Pieces because I'm a
Yep.
big chocolate peanut butter girl,
Hmm.
but candy corn kind of takes it now because it feels like the most identifiable with Halloween.
Yeah.
Um, oh my goodness. Favorite Halloween costume. Oh, you know, I got dressed up Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I'm gonna blank on the name because that's where I'm at right now. I was a Rocky Horror Picture Show
Hmm.
costume. Oh man, I'm blanking on the name and I'm gonna hate myself for this. But it was the maid.
Oh yes,
And I went and I got
yes,
I got the hair, I got the outfit, I got the whole thing. I went all out. The hair was probably the most expensive thing in the costume, and it was literally maybe this big. So that might
awesome.
have been my favorite to this date.
Very cool. Awesome. I like it. Um, now moving into acting just a little bit. At what point did you realize, or was there a clear point that you can identify that this was something that you wanted to do, that you had a passion for acting, for performing, and where did this begin for you?
It had to have been before I was it was definitely before I was 10 because I was in was I in middle school or elementary school at that time, but I'd always kind of it was I don't have any family in the industry, all business folks. So it was always kind of like this like long distance dream. But I loved movies and I always wanted to audition. I don't know where that
Hmm.
came from. But I did go to a theater camp. It's called Stage Door Manor. It's in the Catskills. And I went 2 summers in a row, and that's kind of where I started to get that excitement and was like, oh, I really, really want to do this.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, like not coming from a family with in this industry, it felt kind of like a distant dream.
Hmm.
But I would say around that time I was playing with the idea. I don't have any like specific aha moment or necessarily like a film that I had seen, but it was just kind of
Hmm.
like the slow burn and always this thing that was in the background.
And just kind of grew over the years, I guess.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, actually I went to business school and I got a degree
oh
in
wow.
business, but I ended up taking a class in acting. That's actually I think the major aha moment where I took a class and I remember there was like one day we did a scene and for some reason the scene my scene partner had dropped the lines, but I had done something where I somehow recovered and it was very like intense and overwhelming
Yeah.
and I remember it worked out and everyone was amazed and that feeling of being very proud that somehow we recovered in the scene and that was like my first taste of what it was like to perform in front of people and
Yeah.
besides theater camp when I was younger and then I went to New York and studied in a conservatory after that. So that I think that was the moment it kind of started to really grow
Yeah.
even further. Yeah.
That's awesome. And at the moment of averting what could have been a disaster, I imagine kind of saving the day. And but yeah, feeling that rush and pressure at the same time, but then that rush of actually pulling it off. I could see how yeah, that definitely makes an impact. Um,
Mm.
so let's go back to the first Terrifier. Um, at, at this point, I mean, did you know Damien at all or his work? Were you familiar with All Hallows Eve or the short films, anything
Nothing.
Art the Clown or anything?
Nothing.
So walk
Nothing.
us through your first experience with this that started it all.
I so Gino Caffarelli, who is in the pizza scene, in the
Oh yeah.
original,
Hmm.
I had done a film with him not long after I had gotten out of school, and Damien, I believe around that time or a little bit later, was looking for actors and actresses, and Gino had
Hmm.
recommended me. So I think I'm sure I got an email or maybe a text, but probably an email,
Hmm.
where Damien reached out and said, "Hey, I have this film and it's called Terrifier. Would love for you to audition." At the time, I believe he had offered for me to audition for Dawn and for Vicky. At that point, Catherine hadn't, I don't believe, auditioned because if I would have gone for the Dawn character, I most certainly would have never been cast in the film because Catherine is literally a brilliant actress and is brilliant for that character. But I remember reading it and was like, I'm gonna go with the Vicky character. She seems more up my alley, and also there was just less that one scene I did read. I was like, but I got the script. I knew nothing about Damien. I knew nothing about All Hallows Eve. I say this often. I didn't come up through horror, so I wasn't very well versed in what these genres were. So when I was reading the script, it was obviously a slasher, but I didn't really understand that. And as Damien says often, he's like, Art the Clown, it doesn't jump off the page. You kind of have to see what he and David do with the character to understand the humor. So if you're just reading the script, it's
Right.
pretty violent and grim, and you're kind of like, what's the point of this? So I got the script and I said, why not? I'll audition for Vicky, and I did, and I ended up getting the part, which was something that I actually questioned whether or not I should do it, just because at that time I was just like, it's very violent.
Mhm.
And then now, and so yeah, so then I went into it and I met Damien. The first time I met Damien, I was supposed to meet him in Staten Island in the middle of nowhere, not in the middle of nowhere, but in the middle of nowhere in Staten Island. I was supposed to come down into the basement. There was supposed to be another actress there, and he was going to do my head cast. And when I got there, I got a text that was like, um, the other actress isn't here. And I remember just sending my location to a million people, being like, if I don't come out of here, like,
Right.
let me know. I think we all have very similar stories to how we met Damien and Phil.
Mhm.
But it all ended up being great. And Damien's a really great friend now, and I love them all to death. And I totally understand horror and the slasher genre, and I love it, appreciate it. But that was kind of my introduction into, yeah, Terrifier in this past decade, which has been such a I never would have imagined, but an insane, beautiful journey for me ever since I got that email from Damien. Yeah.
And it's crazy, but yeah, for you it has been, I guess, about a decade, and that all of this Terrifier has just been on a steady ramp up and culminating, of
Mm,
course, with the latest film. And going back to that original film, I mean, I love, and again, anybody that hadn't seen the films, full spoiler alert, because we're going to get into it now. But I think anybody watching this, yeah, they've had enough time to see them by now. But that original, and I love the twist in that,
mm,
Vicky comes in basically halfway through the movie, and you're kind of thrown off. It's kind of a psycho thing where you think Tara is kind of our main
mm,
character that we're going to follow through, and then boom, in classic Damien style, nope,
hmm.
nope, we're not going to do at all what you expect. And when I talked to Catherine a few years ago, it was right after or pretty soon after the release of Terrifier 2, and of course we were talking about Lauren's amazing performance and the character of
Mm.
Sienna and how cool she is. But Catherine was one of the first, I think the first I heard say, well, I think Vicky is technically the real final girl, in the franchise, and
Technically,
that
right? Technically, but
yeah, absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. Um, and so that first movie comes out, and I still remember, we covered it here at Halloween Daily News, and I always say that I've been a supporter and fan of Damien's going back for,
Mm,
like you said, over a decade now, since All Hallows Eve, and that was my first experience with the character
mm,
of Art the Clown and Damien's work, and I knew then that he wasn't going anywhere, and this clown wasn't going anywhere, and I'm proud to say I was right about that prediction. Um, so that first movie comes out, and it doesn't make a ton of noise right at its release, but it was
mm.
later, I believe, that same year when it hit Netflix. It was whenever it hit
Yeah.
Netflix that's when it really kind of, and it was right around Halloween time too, so it was perfectly timed.
Mm,
And I remember about a year after it came out, we saw Damien and David. It was the first time we met them in person at a convention, and it was one of their very first appearances, and already you could just feel that Art, like, he was already there as a horror icon.
mm,
Like a lot of people still hadn't seen it, but you just felt like, okay, this is like one of those films that is just launching here, and to see it all happen. um at what point did you realize, or did you get a heads up from Damien that there was going to be a sequel?
oof. I think I think it was always something Damien wanted to do.
Mhm.
Must have been, we started filming because it was so much later that we ended up filming, well, later, a couple of years that we filmed. I think it was 2019 we were filming, and it was 2016, 17 that kind of it was had that Netflix kind of
Yeah.
burst, and then the conventions. So it must have been right around, because we had stayed in touch, and it must have been around like 2018.
Okay.
But I didn't, but it was such, so like Terrifier was such a massive amount of time for me in my life. And then Terrifier 2, it's funny because
Very
even though I'm
little.
in
Yeah,
Terrifier 2, it was only like 2 days, and then we had to reshoot, and it was a 2 additional days. So they were making that film for I think almost 2 years. And
they did. Yeah.
for me, it felt like, oh, I was like in and out, so but it must have been around 2018 or 2019 he was thinking about it. But for me, like I said, he was already in the throes of it. I actually knew, oh man, I always forget this, and I think I remember it because I heard Lauren doing an interview where I was at the casting. I think he had already cast Lauren though at this point, and he
Okay.
asked me to come in and if I could help read with Elliot.
Okay.
And I met Lauren for the first time and Elliot for the first time. Just I was just helping him as a reader, just read the
Hmm.
scene. Um, so whenever that was, that's like probably around the time that I kind of had an inkling. But yeah, I didn't all this stuff like you had mentioned, all this like slow build. If you look
Yeah.
back on it, it feels like the kind of perfect slow build where you'd
Yeah.
think by now we'd go, oh, this makes sense. We're doing great. But I'm still like, this feels like it's kind of just it's hard to process a lot of it all.
Well,
Yeah.
and I'm sure, and I wanted to ask because I was going to ask if you were a horror fan before, and you said you weren't, and you've kind of grown an appreciation for it now. It seems like, um, but watching that slow rise of that first film
Mm,
and feeling that, I mean, were you feeling it? Was there anything at the time at all that like when I saw All Hallows Eve, like I said, I felt like, oh, this clown, he's here to stay. This director, he's
mm.
got the goods. Did you get any hints of that when at the time working with David and Damien on
I
that
mean,
first one even?
well, I love and respect Damien and Dave and Phil and all of them. So I always I think I think none of us knew this was going to
Yeah,
happen. I think it was always Damien. Damien knew, and Damien had that intense, beautiful belief, which is kind of how it's all happened because you
hmm,
have to have that kind of belief to keep pushing it
yeah,
and to not take certain opportunities, knowing that what you have is so much bigger. Um, but I had no idea. I didn't get any inkling. Even like 2 years ago, I was like, okay, it did really well. It was competing at the box office.
yeah,
But even this time, I didn't know, is it going to still grow? Is it going to go bigger? And then it went insane. It like
yeah.
exploded. But also it's not that I didn't love horror. I just want to clear that up. I'm a big scaredy cat. I'm a like a well, I used to be. I used to be very afraid of all those movies, so I'd watch them like in the comfort of a home if I had a boyfriend because I was like, oh, that's
Yeah.
a fun experience. But I have grown to really love and appreciate it since getting involved with Terrifier. Now I kind of I don't know if it ruined it for me, but I'm a bit desensitized and I don't get as scared as I used to. Um, but uh, but but yeah, I don't think any of us anticipated all the stuff that's happening. But I'm glad you knew and you recognized it early on. Because I think there's still a debate on whether Art the Clown is like the next horror icon or joining all those amazing horror icons. And some people are like, he's already there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm like some people are debating. I'm
yeah.
like, what's the debate? Or they're watching the new one and saying maybe now. I'm like, come on, he's been there.
Yeah.
What are you
You're
talking about?
OG. You're like before Terrifier.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I
I was listening to the band before they got big. Absolutely.
exactly. Oh,
Um,
I love
yeah,
that.
absolutely. And again, just watching the rise, from my standpoint, just as a fan, and then eventually getting to meet Damien and David and talk to them. And one time, my wife and I actually got to be in the room as Damien applied the makeup for a photo op. And
Oh, sick. Okay.
yeah, you can't see it right now, but there's a photo
Oh,
from that photo op of the two of us with David.
I see in the distance it's David and you
Yeah,
guys, you on the
and
right.
he's in
Yeah,
full makeup. And again, this was still kind of early days. Like
yeah.
Terrifier 2 had not been made yet. Maybe they were, I don't even think they were talking about it at that point. It was still just
Yeah.
very much Terrifier 1. And
Yeah. Oh,
but
wow.
that was
That's like,
just
oh, yeah.
yeah, that was an awesome experience to be there and to have Damien be the one, doing it as well.
It's also
Just really
amazing. It's
it's
amazing to see that. I mean, that's the thing is I think before I got involved with Terrifier, I didn't have such an appreciation for special effects
mhm,
because I just was ignorant. And then you meet all these amazing people. You meet Damien, they're artists. They're like,
mhm,
a friend once said you can see the love, even though it's a bit grotesque.
yeah,
And, even Art the Clown's face is scary. It's still, there's so much love that's put into those pieces and you can just
absolutely.
see it. It's an unbelievable art and that's really cool to see Damien apply it like back in the day.
Yes. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
definitely one of those experiences that and it was just a few other people in the room, and it was just, like we were like, yeah, we'll never forget this. And every time we have been able to talk to them before, we're like, you remember that day? And oh, hey, we'll never forget. It was like it was just an awesome
I feel like
experience.
that was a special time because that was the time, and we talk about it often, where like
Mhm.
now everyone's like, oh, Art the Clown, Damien, where are they? But that was kind of the time where it was slowly growing, and people were like,
Yeah.
what's this film? Like, and people forget that Damien and David were out on those convention circuits, like getting it out, and
Yes.
building that fandom. And because they're so amazing and good people, like it made people also want to watch, and then it just grew. So it's this beautiful kind of. I feel like that's such a special time
Yeah.
before, and now there's the after, so which is a different special time, but
Well, yeah, and it grew, and then eventually we did get word that Terrifier 2 was happening, and just the excitement started growing again. Like, what is this guy gonna do now? What is this clown gonna inflict on these people? And I feel like it was almost getting this reputation even before it was released, um, of just the insanity that would come, largely due to, again, going back to that first one, and of course the hacksaw scene is just embedded in everybody's memory that has seen that.
Mm.
It's like just so unforgettable, and it's almost like after Terrifier 3 we forget the impact that that first one did have the first time you ever saw it, because it's just so it sears your brain, for sure, if you've never seen it before.
yeah.
um so you were
Yeah.
surprised.
Oh, I was
Go
just saying
ahead.
I actually watched it for the first time in a really long time the other 2 months, or no, like a month ago. Sorry, not even 2 months ago, a month ago. And I was it brought me back. It brought me back, to say the least. And it was nice to see, I mean, Jenna and Catherine and
Yeah,
everyone and all the Matthew and all these and Dave back in the day. It's surreal. But I love also the direction it's gone in.
yeah,
I know we mentioned uh technically me being technically the OG final girl.
yeah.
But I'm a big fan of Lauren
Oh
Rivera,
yeah,
and I a big fan of Sienna, like as like an audience member and as a person, as a friend now. But
absolutely.
mm,
So moving into Terrifier 2, that one comes out and it gets this
mm,
theatrical release that was originally, if I remember right, it was supposed to be like one weekend originally, and it
mhm.
did so well, it just kept getting extended, and all of a sudden, this little film, again, it's like the little film that could,
Yeah.
is blowing up everywhere. And of course, I'm over here like, yeah, well, I told y'all where you been, um, but
You're like
literally, it's like, yeah, yeah. Hey, I gotta
I
claim
do
my
the same
credit when I
thing.
can.
I'm always
Yeah,
like, yeah.
yeah. I knew all along. Uh, but no, it was just so cool to see, it
Mm,
embraced again, just as a fan, and then to see it deliver. Even I
mm,
was like, oh,
mm.
it's over 2 hours long. How is that even gonna work in a slasher and all that? And but man, it he delivered once again. Everybody delivered. And then we get that treat at the end that
A
Victoria.
treat.
Yes, yes, it's definitely a treat at the end. And you're back. Victoria's back, or as
Mm.
a vessel, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's all
She's still
debatable.
there. She's still there at that
Yeah.
point, but she's losing it a bit. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
talk to us a little bit about that. You said you were on it there literally just like a couple days,
Mm,
and that was just a small filming experience for you. Whereas for everybody else, like you said, I think they were shooting during the pandemic. Excuse me, if
yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was very drawn out, the production, on that one. And then you came in and reprised his character for this just bonkers scene at the end. Um, Talk to us about that. You had to get back into the prosthetics.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. That was amazing. I mean, look, it was a small amount of time, but also like an amazing amount of time, because that's when I
Yeah.
first met Chris Jericho, who now him and I like finally met for the first time. Not sorry, not met for the first time. I mean, like without a face on. Like I don't think he had ever seen me prior to the Fantastic Fest that's this past what was that, August? I'm like losing track of the days. But he met me for the first time without my face on. But the funny thing is that that was the time I met Chris, who yeah, I said to him very briefly without trying to be weird about it, but I was like, as a kid, I grew up watching WWF with my
Yeah.
brother, even though now it's WWE.
Hmm.
But so I very much was a fan of Chris Jericho. So that was fun and being in this scene with him and Leah and it was outrageous and it was and at first it was had nothing to do with the birthing scene. It was just he was the original was that Art the Clone was going
Yes.
to be growing out of the back of my head. So there was like a food fight at some point, like Chris put me in a headlock and
Hmm.
I had to like bite my way out somehow. Somewhere that footage is I wonder if Damien will ever release it. But it was an amazing quick 2 days. Grueling as always, putting that face prosthetic on. Not as
Yeah.
grueling as a third, but it took some time. And Damien was doing what Damien always does, is doing a million things, trying to direct, trying to run the set, but also like
Yeah.
trying to do the makeup, check the makeup. So that was that first experience, and then they kept filming, and they had those all those days and during that time. And then I remember, I think Damien must have texted me or called me and said, "Hey, so we need to reshoot the scene."
Hmm.
Um, Malignant came out, and it's like the same scene, so we just have to reshoot it. And I was like,
Yeah.
"All right, okay, sounds good." And I think he was still like kind of thinking about what he wanted to do and how it was going to unfold. And then I got an email that finally had kind of, I think, in the paragraph of it, because like the script had already been written and this was just
Yeah.
trying to how to rethink we were going to do this. And he was like, this is what's going to happen. And I don't even think that I read it fully. I make this joke, but it really is the God's honest truth that like when I'm reading these scripts, I'm not actually thinking, okay, I'm doing. I'm not like, oh, I'm birthing ahead. Like I just
Yeah.
don't, it doesn't register. I think I'm like dissociating because I
Hmm.
know it's gonna be so horrific. I probably shouldn't like actually think about it. Um, so I don't remember I didn't even like register how uh what I was doing until like I say this all the time until Howard Stern was talking about it on his radio show.
Yeah.
And I sent the clip to my dad thinking, oh, he's talking about the scene. And then when I sent it to my dad, I said, you know what? Don't listen to that actually. Don't listen. It's a
Yeah.
bit they're talking about things that I don't think my dad wants to hear. Um, but shooting that was it was really cold. It was late at
Yeah.
night. Damien was covering me in blood. And the mask was on and that the prosthetic and that
Hmm.
was a grueling process. But some of my favorite footage visually of that film
Yeah.
is, with the lightning effect and the rain. So so yeah. I always have a different experience while I'm filming it than when I see it. I'm always like, oh, awesome. And while I'm filming it, I'm like, Damien, I'm gonna murder you. Like, because he'll also like the blood will dry and Damien will come over and go, I'm sorry. And then he'll spray me and it will
Yeah.
just be but so that was very much my experience on Terrifier 2. It's just those, I think it was 4 or 5 days,
Hmm.
at max. And
Hmm.
but but yeah, really, really awesome. Because then, thank God for that thing that happened with Malignant, because my character would be gone.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. We've
because if she
heard
grows
about
out of the
that.
head, gone.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. We've heard about that original ending, and David's talked to us about it. And but yeah, that's true. If that had happened, then we wouldn't have gotten all the Victoria we got in part three.
I would
Um.
just be watching and have serious FOMO.
So when part two was finally released, and it had this theatrical run, and then before you know it, Stephen King is praising it, and just the
Mm.
whole horror community, and it was just this major event. And again, kind of the a great underdog story, which is why I love these
Mm.
movies too. I feel like the whole thing is like this underdog story. Um,
Mm.
what did it feel from your standpoint at that point? Seeing this time it wasn't a slow burn. It was like this movie came out and boom, it was
It
like
exploded.
it was
Yeah.
huge. And if
Yeah.
art wasn't everywhere already, boy, this really launched him in such a big way. So what was that experience like from your standpoint?
If I'm remembering right, I believe I was in Manchester at a convention and it was coming out, or it was, no, it was blowing up. It was blowing up
Hmm.
around that time, and everyone's like they're meeting me and they're hearing all about it taking off. So I remember along with everyone else, I'm like trying to register what's going on. But but even like I say I think I texted Damien the other day and I was like, has any of this settled in? Like any of it? He's like,
Yeah.
nope, none of it. Nope.
Hmm.
And and I don't know if that's because he's, you know, just against it with all the stuff that's coming in right now.
Yeah.
But even at the time that the second came out, it kind of feels like you're removed from it all because it's all happening and it all makes, but it's hard to really to feel that. But it was exciting and
Hmm.
you know, people were going to see it and people were, you know, raving about it. And that felt really good because also like well deserved. Those, you know, Damien, Phil, David, Lauren, everyone in that cast worked so hard and
Yeah.
to see it do so well was really, really awesome. But still hard to process, to bring the feeling and the mind together about it. But
Yeah, no, I get that. Because again, it is just such a massive thing, and you can't even really, comprehend. And again, just watching it from our standpoint, we cover movies, indie movies, as much as we cover the big studio, and you just don't see this very often. It's one of those stories that will, indie filmmakers will be inspired by it, I think, for
so
years. The way,
many, yeah,
yeah,
even people who aren't indie filmmakers who are in the
yeah,
studio
sure,
who maybe have been wanting to get certain films made or
absolutely,
push it a bit further but can't in the studio. Because I think the hard thing is like Damien's always done the run and gun, like stick to his guns, make the film he wants to make, and has had many opportunities to just to not do that, but
I'm
he really
sure.
stays true.
Hmm.
But it's hard to come from that other world, right? Because
Yeah,
I feel like coming from where you're used to the politics and the money and and I wouldn't say comfort because it's a different type of discomfort, I imagine. But I think a lot of filmmakers who maybe started in indie kind of are feeling like they want to kind of make they want to maybe go back because it is kind of hitting on those
yeah,
heartstrings of like why we all kind of got into filmmaking in the beginning was to really make the stories we want to make. So I mean, I already it is, but so many independent filmmakers are getting inspired to go out and to make the film they want to make.
yeah.
And then people who already established are like, you know what, like
Hmm.
screw this. Maybe we'll make it smaller, but we'll make the film
Yeah,
and I think it'll be so much better for everyone else because um, you know, Damien always talks about how he's such a big fan and he knows what he's missed, you know.
sure.
And
Yeah.
and I think people are finally getting that and everyone's like kind of like, what the hell? This is some phenomenon. But but it's all very exciting. Yeah.
And I think with the third one, the release and again, I mean, literally just making history, um, opening at number one. I mean,
The
it's
motorcycle.
oh,
Sorry, I don't know if you heard that. I was like, well, that was a loud motorcycle.
no,
Sorry.
that's fine. But yeah, with this third one, I mean,
Hmm.
now making history, opening at number one and going out unrated and without the major studio support, I don't
Hmm.
think it's any exaggeration to say they are changing the game and the way filmmakers on every level, like you said, are looking and approaching this now because they're looking at
Hmm.
what these Terrifier films have done, culminating with part three now. Um,
Hmm.
Again, just very, very inspiring, like you said. Um, when did you know that they were going to have you back for Terrifier 3 and that Victoria was going to be such a much larger part of this one?
Well, I think so. When did Terrifier 2 came out? So almost immediately after Terrifier 2, Damien
Hmm.
had been I know he had been thinking and brainstorming and he already knew where it was going to go anyway in terms of like the once Lauren's character Sienna came in.
Hmm.
But he had been saying to me, Victoria's going to be bigger. I have this idea, and he wouldn't exactly say what it was because it would have given away a lot of the lore, and I think it was
Yeah.
still under wraps at that point, and he was still figuring it out. But almost immediately after the second one, I knew I was going to be involved in a bigger capacity,
Hmm.
and and then it was just kind of knowing that and kind of keeping my mouth shut was hard. I was like, oh, this is exciting. Like, you know, like even at the cons, I would wait until Damien would say that Victoria was coming back with more of a role. And then once he said that, I was like, oh yeah, she's gonna come back when people would come and have a conversation with me. But almost immediately and I knew the direction it was going in terms of yeah, I don't know. Are we doing spoilers or are we doing or I should be very careful.
I think at this point, I mean, as people
Yeah,
will
yeah,
be watching this,
okay.
it's been out
Yeah.
for like
Also,
two,
the
three
official
weeks. So
Terrifier posted a picture of me
yeah,
recently with like my
right,
clown
right. So
makeup
full
on. So at this
spoiler
point,
warning if you
yeah,
haven't
yeah,
seen
yeah, yeah,
Terrifier 3, but yeah, I think we're good at this point.
yeah, she's possessed. She's
Yeah,
gone. Victoria Hayes is no longer, and the entity that was in the little pale girl is now in
yeah.
is in Victoria's body. She's a vessel. Um, yeah, and so I knew that that was the trajectory. I knew that that
Hmm.
was kind of that juicy storyline. So I was excited. I was super excited, and then also I just was also like, oh, I hope it makes the cutting room floor, right? Because a lot of things can
Yeah,
get cut, and some things
sure.
did get cut in the edit, but also in the process we were filming. So but I think it actually ended up being kind of the best version of all of it. But yeah, so I knew, and I was waiting for the moment that I could tell everyone.
Awesome. And we talk about, Victoria is now possessed or fully gone, and now she's a
Mm,
vessel for this entity. I'm just curious, in shooting, was there a point in that you where she completely leaves? Because we get that opening scene,
mm,
which is, of course, I love the opening stuff because it's still on Halloween, and so
yeah.
it's still a Halloween movie. It's a Christmas movie,
Mm,
but it's definitely a Halloween movie too. If anybody, no debate about that. But
yeah.
but I love how it picks right up after part two.
Mm,
And I love that opening scene and just that moment where we hear what sounds like Victoria's voice for a minute, and then, but is that just the entity playing at that point, or do you know the
um,
answer to that? Was there a
yeah,
clear
yeah.
point
No,
where it's not her anymore?
I know the answer that I think I know, that
Okay,
I think
yeah,
is well, no, and I'm just saying in case I'm wrong, but my feelings were that Victoria at the end of two, when the eyes um go, she's
yeah,
possessed, like she's been taken over, but not fully.
okay,
Um, in the sense that when we start off on the third film, Victoria's still in there, but that moment that she's she's making Chris Jericho's character believe that it is a part of Vicky, and then she turns, so it's her being a trickster in that moment.
yeah,
um Vicky's still in there though. And that's that moment in front of the mirror when she says, oh, Vicky used to be so hot. She's like taunting her and being cruel.
oh, okay.
Because I think that was also something
Hmm.
Damien and I talked about. We couldn't really have too much fun with this because it would have been like a complete detour from the actual film. But we kind of were like, oh man, and poor Vicky, because I am so protective of Vicky, but
Yeah,
this new character has kind of taken over, and I'm like, oh, this if she's still in there, what would literally Satan want to do? And she would
yeah,
just have fun torturing her, and in that moment in front of the mirror, Vicky's still there and she's taunting her and she's, hitting her head to break the glass so that she could use it ultimately in the tub where that's where Vicky dies. Vicky dies in the tub when she slices her wrists. But up until that moment,
she's still in there.
she's still in there, and she's feeling everything and a part of
Ah,
it. And then in that, yeah, it's brutal. It's so brutal because I remember as like the villain, I would get excited by these moments talking with Damien, but then as Vicky, I was
as
like,
Vic,
oh, it just broke me. It's so because
yes,
really Vicky has a brutal. It's funny because everyone's like, oh, I'm so happy Victoria is where she is. It's like, but that's not Victoria. Victoria's
right,
kind of had a probably arguably the worst of
yeah.
any of the characters in the film. But yeah, that would be the moment when she cuts her wrist up until that, and then from then on out, she's no longer in the game, sadly.
Ah, fascinating, and yeah, I that makes total sense to me. And yeah, unless Damien corrects us at any point, that's
I know
the,
it's
the
I know that's we agree we both
okay.
I
That's
know he said
definite.
that he's
Yeah,
also said
that's
that,
the
but
moment.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But no, she's
So
still in there
yeah,
until then.
and like you said, oh my God, how tragic for Vicky.
It's
I
so
mean,
tragic. It's
just
horrible.
she just gets this call from her sisters. She's just trying to, she
It's
didn't
all
even want to go
Tara's
out
fault.
that
It's
night.
it's all
Right, right. Yeah, she
you
didn't even want to
know,
go out that night. She just wanted to
yeah.
stay home and study and just mind her own
Yeah.
business, and
She gave a good fight. She gave a good
oh
fight.
yeah,
But you know, it's that hard balance where I think as the actor and even the actor protective of the character, you want your character to show that strength, which she did, which is fight back. You know, and before she completely gets possessed, she does descend into madness, and that's her breaking as well from the trauma and the weight of that trauma. So she, you know, Vicky does do something that's not no, I wouldn't say is maybe the healthiest response to trauma, but also is not right. Even though
Mhm.
people believe that that news reporter deserved it, no one deserves that. But as much as I would love to protect my character, and I would have loved for her to have a different storyline as Vicky, no one's Sienna, you know.
Yeah,
Vicky was, you know, you can't have a Vicky and a Sienna. You have only one Sienna. So, and I'm really excited to see where Sienna's character is going, because Lauren is just, oh, I'm just like in love with her, and I'm in love with her portrayal of Sienna. But a hard pill to swallow. So I have different feelings where I'm super excited to go into this villain and getting
yeah,
to play that, but then really saddened, and it's tragic what happened to Victoria. I don't think there's any nice way to dress that up in any way.
yeah. And I think that's part of, you know, a bit of a Damien signature, maybe, is that, you know, as horror fans and gore lovers and all this, we are relishing all of this. At the same time, these are torturous scenarios that these people that are
Mm.
essentially pretty good characters. I mean, yeah, some of them we don't mind seeing them as
Yeah.
much, but for the most part, I mean, the most brutal kills are usually characters that we've kind of come to really like or love,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and like you said, Vicky really has it maybe worst of all. Like you said, considering everything,
yeah,
and then everything we're seeing in this one, where it is this entity specifically just torturing her for those that early bit, the Halloween stuff. Anyway,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And then
exactly.
Christmas comes, and it's a
And then
whole
it's
rebirth.
different. She's not invited to Christmas, so
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah,
She's not.
yeah. Oh man, and but
Mm,
in the process, again, for us horror lovers, now we get this new
mm,
horror entity, this creature, demon, whatever it is, inside of what was Vicky now, and that's a whole
mm.
nother experience we get. Um,
Yeah.
one thing I loved about the new movie, I just is the laugh, your laugh.
No.
When she's that was just one thing I thought was just a I don't know. It was just it just hit me the first time I saw it in the theater, and I was just like, that is just perfect. It's creepy, it's haunting, and
Mm,
she's having fun. And I say she, but
mm.
you know this the entity, whatever it is now.
Yeah.
But she's having fun at all these twisted times, and I
Mm,
love that. Um, can you talk a little bit about that, and about
mm,
this new portrayal in general of like now you're you know it was Vicky, then it was a little of both, and now
mm.
starting with the Christmas stuff, it's this whole new thing. Can you talk about
Yeah.
entering that and
Yeah.
uh, playing this a new character in a sense?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is a new character.
Yeah, completely,
Yeah,
completely different, which is exciting because you kind of start from zero. You know, you kind of, there's so many ways in which you can go with
sure.
it. Because with Vicky, obviously I had established a character and it was living that out. And then once this literal Satan enters in, and Vicky's gone or is in complete control, even if she's there for a little bit, there's
Mhm.
so many ways in which you could go with possession. And I think that's something that Damien and I had talked about. I stayed away from movies with possession because I had seen movies back in the day when I
Yeah.
was younger. Exorcist, the Exorcism of Emily Rose, like, which was like
Hmm.
I used to love that film. Um,
Hmm.
and I remember talking to Damien, because Damien also, you know, he's made that, he has this character in his head. He's made that makeup. He has a sense
Yeah.
of who that is. So, you know, something we had talked about was how he wanted to go in this more childlike, manic direction, which I'm sure he also was like inspired by me because I'm a little bit manic, I think a little bit ADHD and moving around
Sure.
and a little bit hyper. But we had talked about that because we also wanted to try to go in a direction of maybe a position we hadn't seen before. And also like if she's Satan, she's able to do anything and everything. So there's so much freedom to role play and to go here and go there. But the biggest thing was to go big.
Hmm.
And so I kind of had that. There was a lot of discussions early on, especially while he was writing and gearing up. And Damien's very collaborative, was always open to input. But ultimately, he's the sculptor, so he's sculpting it in a certain way. And so once we kind of established that and established a few of the rules, I went off and I started to just look for inspiration, not to take from, but to basically give myself permission. So I was
Yeah.
watching, like, Helen Bonham Carter in the Harry Potter series, because
Yeah.
she has one of the most amazing laughs, because I think
Yep.
the laugh was terrifying to me, because I was
Hmm.
like, because also you can practice lines and you can read with a friend, but to try to practice a crazy laugh in your apartment or in an office or in somewhere, people would think you're slightly crazy. And I live in upstate New York, so
Yeah.
I don't think many people know about Terrifier over here, and they also don't know, or they probably do now, but so I never really got to practice the laugh.
Hmm.
But I was kind of like I said, watching, one of the references Damien told me to watch, which I couldn't believe I hadn't seen it, was Bette Davis in We Need to Talk About Baby, or not, What Happened to Baby Jane, not We Need
Oh
to Talk
yeah,
About.
yeah.
That's We Need to Talk About Kevin. What Happened to Baby Jane?
Hmm.
Very different.
Yeah.
And Bette Davis's performance, and kind of, one moment she's smiling and the next minute she's like, it's so subtle and so quick.
Yeah.
So I drew a lot of inspiration, but also permission.
Hmm.
Because I think the always a scary thing as an actor was I was always used to dramatic roles or very serious roles, or
Yeah.
always cast as the girlfriend or the mom in some movies, but never into this kind of space where I could go bigger, and that was a bit terrifying for me. But I saw these roles, I was inspired, and then I did the work, I prepared, and then when we got to set, when you're in the makeup, that does a whole lot.
I'm
And
sure.
yeah, and it transforms. And also, probably a joke that I'm sure I've said before, or people have said, that the process for makeup was so grueling that I probably was so angry and hateful anyway, so I could just like channel it into the moment. But yeah, and then you show up to set, and then that laugh kind of was there, from all that preparation.
Hmm.
Um, and then wearing that the makeup and the prosthetics, and then whatever energy that became then in that moment unfolded. So yeah, that's how I kind of came to the laugh, but then came to the performance. And when you're working with Dave and you're working with Lauren and Antonella and all these amazing actors, they're giving you so much, so you just have to be present and react, and that was a lot of it.
Oh, well, I loved all of it, and the laugh especially. I thought, yeah, you nailed it. And I don't think
I
I'm
will
up.
say though, after I was filming, the laugh stayed with me for a little bit, which is a bit awkward. Definitely
Nice.
with having conversations, and I'm not even gonna do it now because it'd be embarrassing, but would be having a normal conversation, and then there would be that cackle, and it was very strange for all parties involved.
Awesome. I love it. I think it totally fits. And again, the first time we hear it is very early in the film, so it kind of just sets the tone
Mm.
that, oh yeah, we're dealing with a new kind of Vicky here. We'll say. Uh, was there anything that you were nervous about besides like as far as filming? I mean, this one, all the films are extreme, and this time you're much more a part of it. Was there anything that you were nervous about going into it? And you mentioned some deleted scenes. Are there any deleted scenes you could tell
No,
us
I wouldn't
about?
say, well, I would say there was some moments where in the script, just to answer the last question first, there was
Sure,
a few moments in the script where I might have been in other scenes, just in the like in the
I
background,
got you.
and
Mhm.
moments like that where instead I wasn't present for that day. It was just a lot going on and wasn't also necessary. Um, and there are moments within, and Damien talks about this in that final scene. I mean, when we first did that scene, it was like a 20-page scene,
Oh man.
which would have been like an insane, and I mean 20 page, and a lot of that was just chunks of dialogue. So there's a lot that was condensed down, cut
Yeah.
out. Some stuff was filmed and then just not
Hmm.
in. I think separately, there are a few of us missed moments because they were fun moments to do, but I love what Damien ultimately has on the screen. I think that that's the version he
Hmm.
needed to be, and it's the best version.
Hmm.
Um, but I also trust that Damien said also there's probably, I'm sure, in the future a cut that he would want to maybe put out into the ether with some of those
Yeah.
moments. Oh wait, what was the first question? The first question
Oh,
you had mentioned, because I wanted to answer that.
yes. Were you nervous or
Oh,
hesitant for
well,
any
I'll
of the
bring.
stuff in this one since Vicky has so much
Yeah,
more
yeah,
to
yeah.
do and some very gruesome, intense stuff
Well,
too?
I'll bring it up. I'll bring it up.
Sure.
There's that one scene that I think is making his rounds now. I've been told on TikTok, and this is the shard of glass scene, or the shard of the mirror.
Yes.
It's funny, like I said before, when I read the script, it's like I was dissociated. I was like, oh, okay, great, do this. And then when we're shooting, I usually am very much like take the head, put it here. I'm not like putting two and two together. So I wasn't nervous going into, I was more nervous of I think the size of the role,
Yeah.
of doing justice to it, because I'm across amazing actors like David Lauren who really have established really strong characters and strong performances, and also just, like that scene at the end, just is it gonna hold? Am I gonna be able to do what I need to do in those prosthetics and really, like, hit the
Hmm.
nail on the head? I think those are always those thoughts that can sometimes come in. But I was excited also. But I wasn't nervous about the shard of glass scene. I read it, and it's funny. On the page, it was like, and she starts to do what she's doing. And then in like
Yeah.
parentheses, Damien had said, we're going to shoot this tastefully. So we were all laughing because when we read that, we're like, I wonder how we do that tastefully.
Yeah.
But I didn't like, I at this point, because I've known Damien for so long, have such
Hmm.
trust in him that one thing I will speak to, which I very rarely get to say, is there's a lot of things that we're doing that are like going very far, and because I was going into a role that was a monster and it was pushing the bounds of what my comfort zone usually is,
Yeah.
normally that could be extremely terrifying. But because I know Damien and there's an established trust, and because I've seen what he can do, he's proved it time and time again. I said, Damien, I'm going to come in, I'm going to throw shit at the wall with you. I'm going to go
Hmm.
big. I'm going to go whatever you want to do. You're going to get some horrible takes, but at the end of the day, I know that as long as you have it, you're happy, and I'm going to trust that.
Hmm.
So I went in knowing that, and that definitely helped. Um, when it came again to the shard of glass, I'll get there. I keep like teasing it out. But when I finally got to the shard of glass scene, I had that like cocky, like, whatever, this isn't going to be a big deal. Like, I kind of had an idea in my head of how that was going to unfold. Um, I was like, oh, it's going to be ridiculous, outrageous. She's a monster. It's probably going to be funny more than it is anything else. And then I remember, and Davey's like, great, cool. You're fine. You're comfortable. Let's just do it. Okay. So then I
Yeah.
went up, and I remember going into the attic, and I just remember it felt like it was late at night, and we're about to do the scene, and all of a sudden it's like pitch black. I can't see anyone, but I know there's like 30 people just like littered like little bats in an attic, just like in the darkness.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, okay, roll. And then when I didn't register, I was like, oh, it's dead silent, because they need it to be dead silent. And at that point, he's like, okay, go. And then I'm like, this is a bit uncomfortable. Okay, this is weird. Not for any other reason than just I think my expectation of how it was going to go, and then
Right.
like actually how it went. And I started doing it, and I realized, oh, this is so dark. This has to be real. She really has to get off in this moment.
Yeah.
And so I had a moment where I was like, okay, there's like 30 people. I can't see their faces. And then I could see Dave, and Dave was on the ground, like waiting, trying to be where my eye line was.
Yeah.
And I think at one point, Dave, if I remember right, and I say this often, he was like, well, like trying to be my eye line, looking at me. And then he was like, and he just like kind of looked down, like kind of disgusted. And I was like in the middle while I'm doing these motions, just like, oh my God, what am I doing? This is so uncomfortable. This is so awkward. And Damien was great. Damien was like, are you okay? Stop. How are we doing? And I'm like, I'm good. I'm just oddly uncomfortable. And I didn't expect that. Not for any other reason than like I said, going in with different expectations of in my own head. Um, but eventually we did it, and it is one of my favorite scenes, if that's not strange to say. I mean, uh yeah, it was definitely, I remember, I think Poor Things had come out right around that time with Emma Stone,
Oh yeah.
and I kept saying in my head as I was doing the motion, which is gonna sound weird, I was like, just think of Emma Stone, Poor Things, not like but just to be like, 'cause she was so brave and courageous to go
Right.
that far
Sure.
as an actor, that I kept just remembering all the actors who had kind of done, if not worse, worse scenes that were a lot more exposing. So yeah, I that was my experience. And like I said, nothing to say about everyone else. Everyone else was amazing, checking in on me, making sure I was comfortable. But going into it, didn't think anything of it. Experiencing it, I was like, what the hell am I doing? And
Mhm.
then watching it, I'm like, that's dark,
Yeah.
but I love it.
Yeah.
It's like the ultimate representation of that character. She's pure evil.
Hmm.
It's black and white, and I don't think Art the clown gets off sexually, but what makes more sense than than a than Satan, the devil, or one of the, a demon, not the devil,
Hmm.
but Satan, to basically get pleasure out of the pain and suffering of another. So to me, as like a cinema, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Great. But yeah, so that would be the only thing I think that aside from what I had mentioned
Hmm.
about being just worrying about the weight of the role, but that I would say was my only moment, and that was just like, I think we shot that for like 30 minutes,
Hmm.
that scene.
Well, like you said, I mean, it definitely is unforgettable. Another one to add to Damien's list and
Yeah.
Terrifier's list of just unforgettable moments that
Mm,
that anybody that sees it, will never forget. But the way you described it, absolutely. I mean, yeah, this is Satan, a demon. Yeah, they're going to get ultimate pleasure from ultimate evil. If anybody's ever going to, it's going to be Satan. So.
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
you're absolutely right with that. Um,
Mm,
and then we've got to talk just a little bit about the prosthetics, because you've said how grueling it was this time, that this is your third time now,
mm.
third film in the prosthetics. And this time though, it was a much longer shoot than a couple days. Um,
Yeah.
how long did you have to spend getting it applied and then taken off, and what were
Mm.
some of the challenges you had to work through in working in that?
Yeah. It was 6 to 8 hours, where normally
Oh
it
man,
had been, yeah, I always liken it to like a New York to LA, or like New York to London, which I
that's
think the
crazy.
flight might be faster sometimes
That's
to both
crazy.
of those places. But
I never thought of it like that, but
yeah, well, I was like, oh,
that's
this is because that sometimes could be brutal when you're on a flight that long. That's not
yeah.
even that long of a flight, but it's a long flight. But I was just trying to make myself feel better about flying that long. I think one day I was like, would you rather be doing this, or would you rather be in makeup for 6 to 8 hours? But that was the process. I mean, when I had done the first two films, it was like 2.5 hours, and I could never complain, because even though that was a different process and it had its own grueling aspects to it, like David, I always say, because David's like, oh, she had it worse. I'm like, David, but you've worn that thing like 200 something times. At this point, your skin is screaming at you. Where at least for me in these films, it was few and far between. And then
Hmm.
in this one, it was a lot longer.
Yeah.
I had 2 blocks of time for this filming. And then I think like one extra day later, where it must have been about 2 weeks in total. So maybe 13, 14 days of shooting. And it was 6 to 8 hours. But the thing that's grueling about it is 6 to 8 hours is basically like shoot day, and we were SAG, so we're shooting within 12. So I would have to get pre-called, and then which is 3, 4 hours sometimes before everyone was
Hmm.
coming to set with the
Yeah.
hair, with the makeup team, with the special effects team, which I'll mention in a second. And then I would be doing the normal shoot day, and then coming, it would take about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to get out of it.
Hmm.
If I allowed them to take me out of it, sometimes I ripped it off, which is it's not something you want to do.
Yeah.
But I definitely was very eager to get out of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was a thing, and I'll mention this now. The
Hmm.
special effects team, we were doing Christian Tinsley studio. Christian's an amazing, I mean, he's just like I can't speak any more highly of him and the work that he's done and how many amazing projects he's been on. So even to go to the studio and have that experience
Yeah.
and sit in those chairs and have like the best people in the
Hmm.
industry doing your makeup and building the crown that you're wearing is, I pinch myself. So I can complain all about the makeup, but then I can also in the same breath be like, I worked with some unbelievable people who are really great individuals. And I mean, how fucking cool is that,
Hmm.
to have that and to be able to wear that and to become that. And Heather, who, as grueling as it was for me, I'm pretty sure it might have been more grueling for her to deal with me because like I jokingly said, I'm a little bit ADHD, not a little bit, a lot of it ADHD, and having me in a chair for 6 to 8 hours, it's not the stillest, model to have in the chair. So she definitely was like, stop moving, listen, and I definitely, I think I made her suffer a bit. And Ryan also was there, and this other special effects artist, Alana, did the painting. They all were really amazing and supportive because I basically was in that was my experience too. I didn't go to holding and I didn't get to really hang out with many other people because I basically lived in the special effects makeup chair,
Yeah.
or sometimes on the ground, laying flat. But I was there because if I wasn't getting my makeup done, I'd come back for touch up. So they were really, really amazing, and we had an amazing time, as grueling as it was. But to go back to the special effects, 6 to 8 hours. I'm legally blind because I have no eye here. So if an eyelash gets lodged into my eye, I can't get it out, which has happened multiple times. And then we have a pop-in eye, which once you pop it in, I can't really see much when I just have that eye, but once you pop it in, I can only see like the wrist draw. So I mean that's actually bigger than I can see. So and that and the teeth. So I was like, I'm never again, never wearing this. Once I was done, I cheered when my character met her fate. I
Yeah.
jokingly said to Damien, I hope I didn't offend you. And he's like, my space of how much I could get away with was pretty big,
Hmm.
considering he knew the torture that I was in, um, that he was inflicting on me. But yeah, the makeup was definitely a lot more extensive, a difficult process. But again, I love to complain, but I also like look at the film and I look at the scenes and I look at the merch and I'm like, it's so, so badass. I'm so happy. I'm so happy that that the character kind of went in that direction and I got to play that. That's like more in my wheelhouse, I think, shockingly, and what I'd like to direct my career towards is more of those really complex, dark
Hmm.
characters that I got to play with on Terrifier. So
Awesome. And now the film's out. As we're recording this, I mean, it's in theaters now, and it opened at number one against some big, multi-million dollar studio films. And again, the little franchise that could, we've watched it just ramp up and culminating with part three. I mean, literally number one in theaters. Just
mm.
getting it in theaters, I think, is so huge. And then I mean, I couldn't believe that it went number one, and that I didn't predict. That
I
part
didn't predict
surprised
that
me.
either. I
That's
was
been the
like, oof.
Yeah, that's been the one part I meant I didn't predict about this. I knew fans and people like myself were going to flock to it, but I didn't know that it would hit number one nationwide, and it did. And it's like I said, having seen it now in the theater, I mean, it totally delivered. It was better than I was hoping for, which was a high bar already. And yeah, I think it feels like a celebration of the genre as much as y'all's work and Damien's work.
Mm,
It feels like a victory for horror in general too. But that's why I say it feels like the horror event of the year in so many ways. Like even if you didn't love the first one, it's almost like you want to go support this because this is going to be good
it's gonna do so many things
for
for
the
independent
genre.
filmmaking, for the
Yes,
genre.
yes,
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
absolutely.
I think it's I saw somewhere, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it the highest grossing unrated film
I think
in
so. Yeah,
history? I
that's what I
think.
saw. Yeah. I believe so. Yeah. I mean,
It's still
again,
going. I'm like, it's still going. I think
it's
it's
still
now, yeah, it's still going.
it.
That's the thing is I wondered, I was like, is it going to be as big as the second one? Because, people went out to see it and
Yeah.
a lot of them realized it wasn't for me, so we'll lose that audience. But no,
Yeah.
people were like coming in droves and like seeing it multiple times. And I have friends who never were into that stuff, was like texting me people I hadn't heard from in a long time. Like, I just saw it.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's amazing. Yeah, it's doing something, and it's definitely opening up a discourse. I think people can't figure it out. Where we
Yeah.
all know, we all
That's
know
right. Yeah.
secretly what the secret sauce is.
That's
Like,
right. Yeah, yeah, we
like,
we know Hollywood will catch on, and they'll do their version of it. I'm sure. I told my wife the other day, I'm like, you watch, you're gonna see like big budget Hollywood horror movies released unrated now. They're gonna test the waters with that. That's my next prediction, y'all. That's the
I
and
think
it's gonna be
crazy.
owed to the success of Terrifier 3 specifically. I think being number one.
Mm,
So you're watching this and you're seeing this and you've been doing some press and everything and you're getting everybody's reaction. I mean, you've already kind of hit on it, but I mean, what is this moment feeling for you? I mean, you've been in a number one movie now. You've this Art the Clown has been a part of your life for, like you said, about a decade now. Um,
mm,
and here we are, and the movie's in theaters and people are loving it.
yeah.
Or they're passing out again and puking again. I guess I don't know,
That would
but
have been
but
that would have
either
been me
way,
if I didn't cover my eyes. So I
yeah,
would be a part. There's no shame in that because I would have been a part of that group.
yeah, yeah,
Um, no, it's surreal. It's like I said, it's hard to process. I think also because you try to catch time, right, in all these moments, and we were just in London, Paris, Barcelona. It sounds so romantic, and it is in so many ways. But it's been such an amazing experience, like especially at all those places, and being at Sitges, one of the most amazing film festivals that I've ever been to. And I'm like, if it's ever a dream for me to go back, I'm like, I'd love to go back with my own film one day, or any film for that matter.
yeah,
But you have all these moments, and it's like for most of the time, I'm not really registering it. And then you have these moments when you're talking to like 1,200 people in a theater who are like, about to watch your film, and then all of a sudden they're cheering at the violence and coming up to you, and even just witnessing, young and old women coming up to Lauren, and I saw a little girl crying with Lauren one of the days. It's just like you see these moments, and then that kind of is when it hits you.
hmm
Um, but now I'm trying to slow down a little bit so I can kind of process it. But it's exciting, and it's like a long time coming. And like I had mentioned, I'm a big believer in Damien. I've been since I saw what he did with the first one, and as a friend, and like I said, there's so much integrity that's involved and artistry that's involved in these films that I think people write off or gloss over.
hmm
But like these are artists making these films. They care more than people would like to think. And to see them have that success, and
yeah,
and for the to have that success for the industry to respond the way that it is,
hmm
and that it's going to open up so many doors for so many people and already has, um it's so exciting. And I don't think it's possible to really process though how big Terrifier is.
hmm
But I joke, like, I'm like, 1 degree of separation. Someone or someone they know
hmm
is a Terrifier fan or a secret Terrifier fan, and they
yeah,
haven't. But I feel like now that Terrifier 3 has come out, people aren't afraid to be so, the fans who were secret about it all these years are gonna might start to come out as well.
oh
I've
yeah,
definitely seen a lot more celebrities and and even just friends of mine that finally saw it and were like, these are really good. So it's
definitely,
exciting. It's exciting, and I'm excited for what's to come. Like I said, as a fan myself now of the
yeah.
films and of Damien and Lauren and David, and I'm excited to see where it goes and how big it gets. I don't know if it can get any bigger, but we'll see. We'll see what happens before.
We'll see. We've
Yeah.
seen these similar franchises grow to massive heights. Some of them we're still
Mm.
talking about 40, 50 years after the first one. So yeah, we'll see. I would not challenge Damien or take a I would not assume that he couldn't take it to another level. Let's put it
He
that way,
will.
because
He
I
will.
know I know that he will in some way. Um, and this year specifically, and since the release of Terrifier 2, but really it feels like this year, 2024, Art the Clown, even ahead of the release of the movie, has entered not just horror culture, but just kind of the pop culture in so many ways.
Mm.
You go to Spirit Halloween and there's a life-size art from Terrifier, but then you go across the
On the
street.
wall outside of Spirit is the
Yes,
costume. It's
he's got his own
amazing.
section now, just like Jason and Michael do. And then there's a whole nother version of life size over at Party City and a pale girl. And I mean, he's everywhere. He's in Walmart. There's Art the Clown
I
merch
heard about
right
that.
now.
I heard about that recently. That someone's like, "Oh, I bought this from Walmart." I'm like, "Walmart."
What is that like? Is again one of the OGs, to be there in the very beginning to watch this character and just this whole thing explode the way it has. And again, this year
Mm,
specifically feels like it's been Art the Clown's year. Even before the movie came out and hit number one, it seemed like, man, even if the movie, you know, doesn't even do better than Terrifier 2, I think it's
mm.
already Art's year. But what?
It is. It went from being like the week, now the month, now the year.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
it is surreal. I think the biggest thing also is the tattoos. I
Yes.
mean, I've seen a few Victoria Hayes tattoos, but
Yes.
not Victoria Hayes. I should say the well, whether it's between the her and the entity, but
Yes.
yeah, I mean, like the fact that people are now putting it on their bodies. I mean, I have tattoos everywhere, but not a lot of places, but to see someone get that on their physical body and just more Art the Clown, it's really up there, and it's shocking and it's exciting, but yeah, I'm always excited because I go into some store sometimes. I'm like, oh, am I gonna find the Funko Pops here? Am I gonna? And
Yeah.
then lo and behold, there's not the Funko Pops. I think those sold out almost immediately. But yeah, even like Spirit Halloween, I had seen it from afar. I said, you know what? I'm gonna drive into Spirit and just go in and see if I can find some Terrifier stuff. And then I looked at the
Hmm.
wall on the outside, and it was the woman with
Yeah.
the costume and the glasses, and I was like,
Yeah.
are you kidding me?
Hmm.
Like that's I'm not in a city right now. I'm like, in upstate New York, like I said. So to see it there is just well deserved though. I mean, I love David so much, and he's such a talented person and a beautiful person. And what he does with that, he makes him so much more than what we're used to. And it's exciting. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Even my father and my mother are like, excited about it now. They always were excited and supportive, and they love me, and they've always known how much I love Damien and the whole and everyone. But even them, they're like sending me things and they're getting excited about it. So it's cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And bringing it back to Halloween, art is now quickly becoming a staple of the holiday, and of course at horror conventions. I mean,
Hmm.
he's there's as many Art the Clowns now as there are Michael Myers and Freddy's walking around. But even at Halloween, we mentioned Spirit Halloween. I mean, there's the costumes, there's the
Hmm.
accessories, and you're gonna see them out. We're gonna see little kids dressed as Art the Clown,
Oh
as weird
God.
as that is, I'm
I've
sure.
already seen
Um,
it. I've
I've
already seen
seen
it.
I've seen parents with dads with their little pale girls
Hmm.
walking around, and I think now the couple's costume, it's
Let
begging
it.
to be happening. It's going to be Vicky and Art. I know we're
I better
gonna
see
see
those
that
shards of
starting this
glass
year.
though. Not real glass though. Plastic maybe, something that's safe. But I
Yeah,
bet.
yeah.
No,
But
I'm
that's the
saying
prop. That's the
everyone, yeah, yeah.
must-have prop,
It
right?
must have prop. Yeah, he has his little hat and his little honk. We need the glasses.
Yeah,
But
he's got his horns. She's got her glass, and
I'm excited. It would be really cool to see Victoria the iteration of three, just because that would be a lot of commitment.
oh
That
yeah,
would be unless they one day make a mask, that would be a lot of commitment to somehow figure out how to bring that. That would be an interesting cosplay for sure.
well, I predict they're both. We're gonna get both. They'll make a mask. That will be a mask. I bet by next Halloween there is a mask. Somebody get on that if you're not
Yeah,
already. But
right.
but I bet that will happen. But yes, the cosplayers will step it up and they'll
Mm.
they'll do it for Halloween and for the conventions, and it'll look amazing. And yeah, you're gonna see it at your appearances. I know we're gonna be seeing it. Just like I said, we've been seeing Art and Pale Girl everywhere already, and some Siennas out
Mm.
there now. More and more
Oh my God,
Siennas.
so
So
many. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, you're part of this too.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so I guess I gotta ask the obvious question: has Damien talked to you about part four yet? I know it didn't leave your character in a too very good position at the end of this sequel, but then again, this is a franchise that people can be
Mm.
decapitated and
And
die
come
and be
back.
resurrected. So has he reached out to you? Has he told you any plans for part
Well,
four?
I've seen ever since it was released and we were all together for the premieres and then even just some conventions. And I had seen him recently in New York. We all grabbed dinner one night. And you know, I always say to Damien, I'm like, whatever it is, I'm a big supporter. If you need me, I'm always there. Um, Even if I'm not in part four, I want to at least come one day and get him a cup of coffee. I think I always have said that, and I feel like I finally need to do that. In terms of my fate, I would have felt and thought that like that could technically be the end, but Damien has mentioned that you never know. Like I think he's still working it out. You know, I think there's some clear things that he's decided for the obvious characters that are still going strong. Um, but you know, he said you never know. He's like, you never know where my imagination's going to go, and you know, I actually truthfully don't know though. Yeah, I don't know if what the future might hold for me or my character in the franchise, but whatever Damien decides, I support, and I know it will be the best for the films and for the fans. So one way or another, I'll find myself to the set, whether it's to, you know, act in a scene or to get him a coffee. Um, so we
Awesome.
shall see. I'm sure. I mean, I don't know if they'll be doing it right away, but I'm
Mhm.
sure that it won't be too long before they they start to just figure that out.
Awesome.
But for
Well,
now, I'm just gonna enjoy all the tattoos and the cosplays and then I have a few conventions coming up, so I'm excited because I love meeting the fans and hearing why they love the films and um so I can still live in the one thing is I won't be shaking this franchise for a long time. So and I'll happily be enjoying that.
well, and you know we'll be here for all of that, and I'm sure we'll connect at a convention in person at some point
Oh, I
at
love
some
that. Yeah.
time. I know you got a lot of
Mm.
cool appearances coming up. Are there any other upcoming film projects or just any other projects that you want to plug or can tell us about that fans can look forward to?
Yeah, well, I moved into directing around the
Okay.
time that we shot the second
Hmm.
film. So I'm in the process of developing my features, and one of them happens to be in the horror supernatural realm.
Awesome.
So you'll definitely be seeing me in a directing capacity. But another film that I had just done is making its festival rounds. It's a short film. It was my first film foray into the horror world. It's a psychological horror, and it's called Open Your Eyes. And we premiered at Fright Fest in the UK, and it just did Nightmares Fest in Ohio and Orlando. It did Scream Fest. Orlando, yeah, Orlando Scream Fest and LA International Horror Fest. So those are the and I think the four so far that we've been doing this festival circuit. So Open Your Eyes, short film. At some point will come out soon, whether online or where people and I only am on Instagram. I kind of
Okay.
bounce in and out, you know what I mean? So I
Hmm.
usually I put my announcements there, anything that's coming up in the future. So
Okay.
that's the near future. And like I said, just developing and another film that I acted in, it's a short film. It's called Ocaso. It's a Spanish film. Not horror. It's not a horror, but that will be coming out in 2025. And I act alongside Ramon Barea, is a very well-known Spanish actor, and the director is Alexander Mansfield Martinez. So that will be another film of mine that you'll see me in an acting capacity.
Awesome. Well, we're going to look forward to all of those. All that sounds
And
exciting, especially the horror stuff. And yeah, I can't wait to see your directorial stuff as well. That
now
all
I have to
sounds.
figure out what costume I'm gonna wear. You've got me. I'm like, I think I might be available on the 31st of October and that time to actually, maybe I'm not working, so now I have to figure out my costume.
That's that's right. That's right. Yeah, yeah. What's your plans for this Halloween? That's
I
That's
don't know.
the big question.
I was
You
just like
gotta.
I was doing the days in my head and I'm like, I think I might actually be able to make Halloween this year. I better start thinking about my costume.
There you go. All right. So you don't have a costume set for this year. We'll look forward to an Instagram post or some kind of update
Yeah,
about
definitely.
that. And but you're going to be out and you're going to be seeing some Vicky and Arts, and I mean I could even see families doing Vicky, Art, Pale Girl. I
Oh my
mean,
God, yes.
if they got a daughter, she could be Sienna like over here. And
Hmm.
I mean I could
I
Jonathan,
want the
even
whole
if there's
group. I
another
want the
sibling. Oh my
whole
God.
group. That
Oh
would
my
be
God.
amazing. That would be
You
amazing.
a family portrait of from Terrifier.
Oh,
Look
that
what you
would be
guys have
amazing.
started here.
Oh
Yeah,
God.
it's
Yeah.
it's never going to go away. We're
Yeah.
and we are here for it.
Oh,
This has been awesome. This has
oh.
just been really great hanging out with you today and just learning more about you and getting your whole story and just talking about Art the Clown and these
Mm.
films and like I said, it's been a pleasure for us to cover these films from the beginning. Again, gotta take credit where
No,
we can
heck yes, do it. OG.
and to talk to so many of you guys. And as I told you privately before this, but you know, our coverage of these films could not be complete without having this conversation with you.
Mm.
You're one of the only people. I think you and David are the only ones that have been in all three of them.
Yeah.
And such a part of all of this. And we love your work and look forward to whatever new projects you have going on. And yeah, of course, we're all looking forward to Terrifier, more Terrifier down the road
Mm.
whenever that happens. So again, I can't thank you enough for hanging
Thank you
out
for
with us
having me. This
today.
has been great. I really appreciate it, and it's been great to go back.
Oh, well, it has been totally awesome for me, and I know our audience loves the movie, loves you in it,
Mm.
and is totally going to appreciate you giving this time to us today. And
Mm.
again, as we're recording this, it's almost Halloween itself. So I just, of course, have to wrap up by just wishing you a very, very happy Halloween.
Oh, you as well. Have a happy Halloween.